My husband wanted my sister to pretend she was his wife until I ruined his biggest lie, the lie that changed everything. People always say betrayal comes out of nowhere, but that's not true. The truth is, betrayal usually arrives one tiny piece at a time. A strange comment, an uncomfortable silence, a moment that doesn't feel right. You ignore it because you love the people involved. You convince yourself you're imagining things. That's exactly what I did. If someone had asked me back then whether my husband loved me, I probably would have said yes. Not because he showed it every day, but because I'd spent 10 years convincing myself that love was supposed to feel like sacrifice. My name is Carissa. At 34 years old, I had everything most people work their entire lives for. I was a successful attorney, a partner at one of the city's top law firms, and I owned a beautiful home. From the outside, my life looked perfect. What nobody knew was that I was carrying the weight of everyone around me, especially my husband. Damien hadn't kept a steady job in years. Every new position ended the same way. His boss didn't respect him. His coworkers were jealous. The company didn't appreciate his talent. There was always another excuse. Eventually, I stopped asking questions. I simply paid the bills. The mortgage came from my paycheck. The cars in the driveway were bought with my money. Every vacation, every dinner, every piece of furniture, everything in our home existed because I worked long hours while Damien searched for the career he believed he deserved. Whenever friends asked how he was doing, I'd smile politely and say he was figuring things out. I believed marriage meant supporting each other. What I didn't realize was that I was the only one doing the supporting. It wasn't just Damien. My younger sister Nikki depended on me too. She'd been unemployed for nearly 2 years. She called it finding herself. I called it paying her rent every month. I covered her apartment, her car insurance, her phone bill, even her salon appointments because she insisted her confidence depended on keeping her blonde highlights fresh. Whenever she cried about how difficult life was, I opened my wallet. I never imagined I was financing my own betrayal. Then one ordinary Tuesday evening, everything changed. I'd worked nearly 12 hours at the office. I came home exhausted, cooked dinner because Damien said he was too tired, and finally sat down hoping for one peaceful meal. Instead, my husband casually destroyed our marriage between bites of pasta. "So," he said without even looking at me, "my 10-year high school reunion is next month." I smiled politely. "That'll be fun." Then he added something I'll never forget. "I need Nikki to come with me." At first, I thought I'd heard him wrong. "My sister?" He nodded while scrolling through his phone. "Yeah," I laughed awkwardly. "Why would Nikki go to your reunion?" He didn't even look up. "Because I need her there." That answer made absolutely no sense. I waited for him to explain. He didn't. Finally, I asked the obvious question. "Why would you need my sister instead of your wife?" Damien sighed dramatically, as if I were asking something ridiculous. Then he said the sentence that changed how I saw him forever. "Because everyone there thinks I married her." I just stared. Surely he was joking. He wasn't. Years earlier, his old friends had met Nikki once at a barbecue. They assumed she was his girlfriend. Instead of correcting them, he simply let them believe it. 10 years passed. The lie kept growing. Now his reunion had arrived. And instead of telling the truth, his solution was to borrow my sister and pretend she was his wife for one more night. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "So," I asked slowly, "you've spent 10 years telling people you married my sister?" He shrugged. "It was easier." Then he smiled. "As far as they know, I married the prettier one." The prettier one. Not my wife. Not Carissa. Just the prettier one. I felt my chest tighten. I'd spent years building a successful career, graduating at the top of my law school class, buying our home, supporting our family, and somehow, none of that mattered, because according to my own husband, I was simply the other sister. I tried to stay calm. "So your plan, I stay home? And Nikki pretends she's your wife?" He reached across the table and squeezed my hand like he was comforting a child. "It's just one night. No one gets hurt. I'll make it up to you." That sentence told me everything. He actually believed a fancy dinner could erase this kind of betrayal. Then came the next surprise. Nikki already agreed. I froze. "You asked her before asking me?" He nodded. "I needed to know she was available." That hurt even more. My own sister. The woman I'd supported financially for years, though, had already agreed to play my role without saying a single word to me. She hadn't warned me. She hadn't asked how I'd feel. She simply said yes. Something inside me quietly cracked. Later that night, I called Nikki. She answered cheerfully. "Oh, Damien already told you?" I forced myself to stay calm. "You really agreed to this?" She laughed. "It's only for one evening." "Honestly, you should take it as a compliment." "A compliment? Yeah, he trusts me." Those words echoed inside my head long after we hung up. He trusts me, not. He loves you, not. I'm sorry, not. Are you okay? Just, he trusts me. For the first time in years, I began wondering whether I'd ignored warning signs that had been sitting in front of me all along. The reunion was still weeks away, but something told me the reunion wasn't the real problem. It was only the beginning. And before that night arrived, I intended to learn exactly what was happening between my husband and my sister. The next morning, I went to work like nothing had happened. I smiled at my coworkers, answered emails, attended meetings, and argued a case in court. From the outside, I looked exactly the same. Inside, though, my mind kept replaying Damien's words. Everyone thinks I married the prettier sister. Every time I heard that sentence, another piece of my marriage seemed to disappear. For years, I'd convinced myself that Damien loved me, even if he wasn't very good at showing it. Now, I wasn't so sure. By the time I got home that evening, I'd made a decision. If Damien and Nikki were really planning to pull off this ridiculous lie, then I wasn't going to sit quietly on the sidelines. I was going to watch every second of it. If there was something they were hiding, eventually they'd slip up. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. The following afternoon, I left work early and quietly unlocked the front door. Voices drifted from the living room. They were laughing. Not just casual conversation, comfortable laughter. The kind shared between people who had spent a lot of time together. I stepped inside and found Damien and Nikki sitting side by side on my couch. Papers were spread across the coffee table. A notebook lay open between them. The moment they noticed me, neither of them looked surprised. Neither of them acted guilty. It was almost as though they expected me to be okay with all of this. "I figured I'd help you practice," I said, forcing a smile. "I can tell you if anything sounds unbelievable." "Sure," Damien answered without hesitation. "That actually helps." No apology, no awkwardness, just complete confidence. I sat across from them and waited. Damien leaned toward Nikki. "So, when someone asks how we met," he smiled, "I'll tell them I saw you standing across the room at a birthday party." My heart skipped. I walked over because I couldn't stop thinking about you. I felt my stomach twist. That wasn't a fake story. That was our story. The exact night Damien and I met. The same birthday party. The same conversation. The same memory I'd treasured for 10 years. I couldn't stay quiet. "Wait," both of them looked at me. "That's how you and I met." Damien shrugged. "I know. So why are you giving her our story?" He laughed lightly. "Because I already remember all the details." It's easier. Easier. That word hit me harder than I expected. Everything was easier to him. Lying was easier. Replacing me was easier. Pretending someone else lived my life was easier. I turned toward Nikki. "You're seriously okay pretending that happened to you?" She looked at her freshly painted nails. "It's just a story." "No," I shook my head. "It isn't. That's the night my entire life changed." She rolled her eyes. "You don't own memories, Carissa." I stared at my own sister, the woman I'd spent years protecting, helping, supporting. "You told me once that you loved hearing our love story," I said quietly. "I thought you cared." She gave a tiny shrug. "I still do." "So what's the problem?" Before I could answer, Damien continued rehearsing. "Then I texted you the next day." Nikki smiled. "And I made you wait 3 days before saying yes." I closed my eyes for a second. That was me. I'd made Damien wait because my college roommate insisted waiting 3 days made you seem confident. I'd laughed about it with Nikki years ago. Now she was repeating my memories as though she'd lived them herself. Every sentence felt like someone stealing pages from my life. I interrupted again. "What about the proposal?" Damien answered immediately. "Rooftop restaurant downtown." I had the ring hidden in my jacket pocket. I was so nervous I barely touched my dinner. I remembered every second. The city lights, the music, the waiter bringing champagne, the tears running down my face when I said yes. Now, those moments had become rehearsal lines. I looked at him in disbelief. That's my proposal. Our proposal. How can you hand it to someone else? Damien's expression changed. His patience disappeared. You know what your real problem is? I crossed my arms. What? You've always been jealous of Nikki. I actually laughed. Excuse me? He stood up. She got more attention. More compliments, more dates, and you've never gotten over it. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He wasn't apologizing. He wasn't embarrassed. He was blaming me. I'm not jealous of my sister. I'm asking why my husband is teaching another woman how to become me. Nikki folded her arms. You're making everything dramatic. It's literally one night. One night. Everyone kept repeating those words, as if betrayal came with an expiration date, as if lying stopped being wrong because it only lasted a few hours. Then Damien said something even worse. Mom agrees with us. I blinked. Our mother? Nikki already talked to her, and she thinks you're overreacting. For a moment, I couldn't even speak. They discussed this, together, before telling me, my husband, my sister, and my own mother. Everyone knew. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone except me. I suddenly felt like the only person who hadn't been invited into my own life. They returned to rehearsing, like I wasn't even sitting there, like I was invisible. Damien told Nikki about our honeymoon, our anniversary, the vacation we'd taken to the coast, the birthday surprise I'd planned, one by one. My memories became hers. At one point, I quietly corrected a restaurant name. It was French, not Italian. Damien looked at Nikki and exaggerated my voice. Actually, Damien, that's not exactly right. He mocked the way I spoke, the way I corrected details, the way I tried to help. Nikki burst into laughter. Then Damien laughed. And suddenly, the two people I loved most were laughing at me. Inside the house I'd paid for, I stood up. I was only trying to help. Nikki smiled. We don't need your help. Go do some work. Isn't that what you're good at? The words weren't loud. They didn't need to be. Sometimes quiet cruelty hurts the most. I walked upstairs before either of them could see the tears forming in my eyes. I splashed cold water on my face, looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. The woman staring back looked exhausted. Not because of work, because she'd spent years trying to earn love from people who only appreciated what she could give them. After a few minutes, I convinced myself to calm down. Maybe everyone was right. Maybe I was making too much of it. Maybe I was just emotional. I started downstairs again. Halfway down the staircase, I heard Nikki laugh. Not the loud laugh she'd used all afternoon. This one was different. Soft, private, intimate. I stopped, through the staircase railing. I looked into the living room, and everything inside me froze. Damien was standing inches away from Nikki. His hand rested gently against her face. His thumb slowly brushed across her cheek. She leaned into his touch without hesitation, without surprise, without discomfort. Their faces moved closer, closer, until they were only inches apart. They were about to kiss. Not pretending, not rehearsing, not acting. It looked natural, comfortable, like something they'd done many times before. A tiny sound escaped my throat. Both of them jerked apart instantly. Damien stepped backward. Nikki's face turned pale. For a second, no one spoke. Then they both started talking at once. It's not what it looked like? We were rehearsing. We needed to practice looking affectionate. I stared at them. Neither one could even look me in the eye. The panic on their faces told me more than any explanation ever could. I slowly walked into the room. So, I said quietly, that was rehearsal? Damien nodded too quickly. Exactly. Nikki forced a smile. If we're going to convince everyone we're married, we have to look believable. I looked from one face to the other. Something inside me finally shifted. Until that moment, I'd still been trying to save my marriage. Now, I wasn't trying to save anything. I was trying to uncover the truth. Because whatever was happening between my husband and my sister had gone far beyond a high school reunion, and I was determined to find out exactly how long they'd been lying to me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake staring at the ceiling while the scene in the living room replayed over and over in my head. Damien's hand on Nikki's face, the way she leaned into him without hesitation, the panic when they realized I'd seen them. If it had really been practice, why did they jump apart like guilty teenagers? Why did they look terrified? Deep down, I already knew the answer. I just wasn't ready to say it out loud. Around midnight, I got out of bed and walked downstairs. Damien was asleep on the couch with the television still playing. I stood there watching him. 10 years. 10 years of marriage. 10 years of believing this man was my partner, and suddenly I couldn't recognize him anymore. The next morning, I waited until he finished breakfast. Then I stood in the kitchen doorway. "We need to talk." He didn't even look up from his coffee. "About what?" "About yesterday." He sighed dramatically. "I thought we already settled that." "No, we didn't." I folded my arms. "I watched you touch my sister like she was your wife." His expression immediately hardened. "Oh my God? You're still on that?" "I saw it with my own eyes. It wasn't what you think." "Then tell me what it was." He slammed his coffee mug onto the counter. "It was rehearsal. We already explained this." I stayed calm. "If that's true, why did you both panic when I walked in?" He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped closer. "You've been acting paranoid." "No, I've been paying attention." For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, I asked the question that had been haunting me. "Are you sleeping with Nikki?" The kitchen went completely silent. He stared at me. I stared back. His jaw tightened. Then he laughed. Not because it was funny. Hell, because he needed time to think. "I can't believe you'd even ask me that. You didn't answer." "Because it's a ridiculous question. So answer it." He rubbed both hands across his face. "No, I'm not sleeping with your sister." The words sounded rehearsed. Flat, emotionless. Like he'd practiced them already. I looked directly into his eyes, then look at me, and tell me there's absolutely nothing between the two of you. This time, he couldn't. Instead, he looked away. That told me everything. Then his entire attitude changed. "You want to know the truth?" His voice became cold. "I actually enjoy spending time with Nikki." I felt my stomach drop. "Why?" "Because she appreciates me." He pointed toward the living room. "She doesn't make me feel like a failure." "I have never called you a failure." "You don't have to. It's in the way you look at me. The way you pay every bill. The way you remind me you're the successful one." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'd worked myself to exhaustion supporting him. Now somehow, that was my fault. "Nikki doesn't judge me." He smiled bitterly. "She actually thinks I'm worth something." I shook my head slowly. "She thinks you're worth something because she doesn't pay your bills." That hit a nerve. His face darkened. "There it is. Money. It always comes back to money with you." "No, it comes back to responsibility. You haven't had a steady job in 3 years. I've paid for everything. Our house, our cars, your phone, your life." He stepped closer until we were only inches apart. "If you don't trust me, maybe we shouldn't be married." There it was, the threat. Every argument eventually ended there. Divorce. He always assumed I'd panic, beg him to stay, apologize. Instead, I simply looked at him. "Is that what you want?" "I want a wife who believes me." I wanted a husband who respected me. Neither of us spoke. Finally, he grabbed a pillow. "I'm sleeping downstairs." He walked away. Not once did he turn around. Not once did he apologize. Most importantly, not once did he honestly deny loving Nikki. That was all I needed. About 20 minutes later, I grabbed my purse, my car keys, and drove straight to Nikki's apartment. She lived there because I paid for it. The lease carried my signature. Every month, the rent came directly from my bank account. I parked outside and climbed the stairs. Then I knocked. No answer. I knocked again. Still nothing. "Nikki? I know you're in there." A minute later, the door opened just a few inches. She looked nervous. "It's late. Can we talk tomorrow?" "No." I pushed the door open and walked inside. She looked shocked. "You can't just walk in." "I pay the rent. I think I can." The apartment looked exactly as I remembered. The couch I'd helped choose. The television I'd bought her for Christmas. The kitchen appliances I'd paid for. Everywhere I looked, I saw my money. "What do you want?" I turned toward her. "The truth." She crossed her arms. "I've already told you." "No. You've repeated excuses." I asked for the truth. She stayed silent. So I asked the question directly. "How long have you been sleeping with Damien?" Her eyes widened. "We're not sleeping together." I stepped closer. "Then explain yesterday." It was rehearsal. Again. The same excuse. The same lie. I studied her face. She looked scared. Not offended. Scared. That difference mattered. Then something occurred to me. Only one woman besides me knew about Damien's birthmark. Very few people had ever seen it. I decided to gamble. I looked directly into her eyes. "What shape is the birthmark on his left hip?" Everything changed. For one tiny second, she froze. Her face lost all color. She opened her mouth, then quickly shut it again. I don't know. Yes. She did. That split second had answered everything. You hesitated. I was surprised. No. You remembered. She shook her head frantically. He showed me a picture once. I almost laughed. No. He hates that birthmark. He won't even let me joke about it. There are no pictures. Silence. Heavy. Painful silence. She couldn't think of another lie. Finally, I spoke. I'm done. She looked confused. What? Blushed. I'm done paying for your life. Her eyes immediately filled with panic. What are you talking about? Your rent. Canceled. Your car insurance. Canceled. Your phone. Canceled. Everything. You can't do that. Watch me. Tears filled her eyes. I don't have anyone else. I looked at her for a long moment, then quietly replied, You should have thought about that before betraying the only person who was keeping you afloat. She started crying. Real tears. But they didn't move me anymore, because every tear reminded me of another month I'd sacrificed for someone who clearly didn't care about me. I turned toward the door. Carissa? She reached for my arm. I stepped away. No. You made your choice. Now live with it. I walked out without looking back. When I reached my car, I finally broke down, not because I was surprised, because I wasn't. Deep down, I'd known before I knocked on that door. I cried for a few minutes. Then I wiped my face, started the engine, and looked straight ahead. That's when a completely different idea entered my mind. Damien wanted to walk into his reunion pretending my sister was his wife. Fine. If he wanted to play games, then I'd play one too. Only mine would end very differently. I reached into my contacts and found one name I hadn't texted in years. Jackson. Damien's older brother, the successful brother, the responsible brother. The one Damien had spent his entire life competing against and losing to. Jackson owned a thriving business. He treated people with respect. He'd offered Damien jobs more than once, only to be turned down out of pride. He and I had always been friendly at family gatherings. Nothing more. Until now. I typed a message. Hi, Jackson. I know this is unexpected, but I really need your help. Can we meet tomorrow? Please don't tell Damien. I stared at the screen for a few seconds before pressing send. Almost immediately, 3 dots appeared. Then his reply came. Of course. Meet me tomorrow morning. And Carissa, are you okay? For the first time in weeks, someone had asked how I was feeling. Not what I could pay for. Not what I could tolerate. Not what I could sacrifice. Just, are you okay? I looked at his message and realized something. Maybe the people who truly cared about me had been there all along. I'd just been too busy carrying everyone else to notice them. The next morning, I arrived at the coffee shop 10 minutes early. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about work. I wasn't thinking about deadlines. I wasn't thinking about paying someone else's bills. I was thinking about one thing. The truth. A few minutes later, Jackson walked through the door. He spotted me immediately and smiled. Carissa? He walked over and gave me a quick hug. You look exhausted. I managed a weak smile. I feel worse than I look. He pulled out a chair. Tell me everything. And for the next hour, I did. I told him about the reunion, the lies, the rehearsals, the stolen memories, finding Damien and Nikki almost kissing, the confrontation, the birthmark, everything. Jackson never interrupted. He never defended his brother. He never once suggested I was overreacting. When I finally finished, he leaned back in his chair and quietly said, I'm so sorry. Those 3 words almost made me cry again, because they were the first genuine apology I'd heard since this nightmare started. I kept wondering if I was crazy, I admitted. Jackson shook his head. No, you're married to someone who's been making you question reality. He did that to everyone growing up. I frowned. What do you mean? Jackson sighed. Damien has always believed every problem was someone else's fault. If he failed a test, the teacher hated him. If he lost a job, the manager was jealous. If a relationship ended, the woman was too demanding. He never accepted responsibility. I slowly nodded. That sounded painfully familiar. I just never realized how bad it was. You loved him, Jackson said softly. People ignore a lot when they're trying to save someone. His words stayed with me, because they were true. For years, I hadn't been living my own life. I'd been trying to rescue Damien from his. After another moment of silence, Jackson looked directly at me. What do you need from me? I smiled for the first time in days. I need Damien to feel exactly what I've been feeling. He raised an eyebrow. Meaning? I want him to wonder. I want him to lose sleep. I want him to question everything. I want him to experience the same jealousy, the same panic, the same uncertainty that he's put me through. Jackson understood immediately. You want me to help make him nervous? I nodded. Exactly. He smiled. I can do that. From that moment, our plan quietly began. The next morning, I was getting ready for work when Damien appeared in the bathroom doorway. He looked tired. Dark circles sat beneath his eyes. For the first time, he looked worried. You're up early. I have plans. What plans? I kept brushing my hair. They're like coffee with Jackson. The room became completely silent. What? I met his eyes in the mirror. You heard me. His face tightened instantly. Why? Because he asked how I was doing. That answer seemed to irritate him even more. You don't need to spend time with him. I disagree. He stepped into the bathroom. I don't want you around my brother. I laughed. You didn't seem concerned when you wanted to spend the weekend pretending to be married to my sister. That's different. Why? It just is. I picked up my purse. I'm leaving. He suddenly grabbed my phone from the bathroom counter. What are you doing? I'm canceling. He held the phone above his head. You're not meeting him. For a second, I just stared. This 34-year-old man, who hadn't paid a household bill in years, was acting like a teenager hiding someone's phone. Give it back. No, I smiled. Fine. His expression changed. What? I'll buy another one. I walked toward the door. He hurried after me. Wait, I didn't. Behind me, I heard him call my name twice. For the first time in our marriage, I kept walking. Jackson was already waiting when I arrived. He noticed immediately that I didn't have my phone. What happened? My husband stole it. Jackson blinked. He actually took your phone? He wanted to stop me from seeing you. Jackson leaned back. That's unbelievably controlling. I smiled sadly. I used to think it was normal. He looked at me carefully. No, it isn't. The conversation flowed naturally. There was no tension, no criticism, no manipulation. When I spoke, Jackson listened. When I finished a sentence, he didn't interrupt. When I laughed, he laughed too. It felt easy. I hadn't realized how exhausting my marriage had become until I experienced what peace felt like. As we finished our coffee, Jackson smiled. Can I ask you something? Sure. When was the last time someone asked what you wanted? I opened my mouth, then stopped. I honestly couldn't remember. When I got home, 3 hours later, Damien was sitting alone in the dark living room. The television wasn't even on. He'd been waiting. 3 hours. His voice was flat. You were gone 3 hours. We talked. About me? I shrugged. Not everything is about you. His jaw clenched. Give me one reason I shouldn't think something's going on. I laughed. That's interesting. What? When I asked about Nikki, you called me paranoid. Now suddenly you understand how jealousy feels. He didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his pocket and tossed my phone onto the couch. Check it. I picked it up. He'd gone through every message, every photo, every contact. You read everything? I had every right. No, you didn't. I looked him directly in the eye. You don't trust me. His answer came immediately. I don't trust Jackson. There it was. Not concern for me. Fear of his brother, exactly as I'd expected. A few days later, Jackson invited me to dinner. Nothing fancy, just a quiet restaurant across town. I wore a simple black dress, nothing dramatic. When I came downstairs, Damien nearly dropped the glass he was holding. Where are you going? Dinner. With who? Jackson. No. He actually stepped in front of the front door. Move. I said no. I smiled, and I said yes. Then he grabbed my arm, hard. Hard enough that I knew there would be bruises. For 1 second, the old me would have apologized. The old me would have stayed home. Not anymore. Without warning, I screamed. Loud. As loud as I possibly could. The sound echoed through the entire house. Damien immediately let go. What are you doing? I calmly straightened my sleeve. I wanted to see how quickly you'd let go if you thought someone might hear. His face turned white. You've changed. No. I finally stopped being afraid. Right then, headlights appeared through the front window. Jackson had arrived. I grabbed my purse, walked past Damien, and didn't look back. As I climbed into Jackson's car, I caught one final glimpse of my husband standing alone in the doorway. For the first time since we'd been married, he looked terrified. Not because he was losing control of me, but because he finally realized he already had. The perfect husband was finally falling apart. The drive to dinner was quiet, not uncomfortable, peaceful. For years, every car ride with Damien had been filled with complaints about work, about money, about people who didn't appreciate him. There was always something wrong, someone else to blame, someone else responsible for his unhappiness. But sitting beside Jackson, the silence felt different, comfortable, relaxing. Neither of us felt the need to fill every second with meaningless conversation. When we reached the restaurant, Jackson held the door open. "After you." It was such a small gesture, but it reminded me of something painful. I couldn't remember the last time Damien had held a door open for me, not because he forgot, because he stopped trying. Dinner lasted nearly 3 hours. We talked about everything: travel, books, family, my career, his business. For the first time in years, someone asked about my work because they were genuinely interested, not because they wanted to know how much money I made. Jackson listened carefully. He remembered details I'd mentioned months, even years earlier at family gatherings. When dessert arrived, he smiled. "You always order chocolate." I laughed. "You remember that? You've ordered the same dessert every Thanksgiving for 6 years. I stared at him. Damien couldn't even remember how I liked my coffee, yet his brother remembered my favorite dessert. The difference hurt more than I expected. When Jackson drove me home, he walked me to the front door. "I had a really nice time." "So did I." He hesitated for a moment, then gently kissed my cheek. Nothing more. No pressure, no expectation, just kindness. After everything I'd been through, that simple gesture almost brought tears to my eyes. "Good night, Carissa." "Good night, Jackson." I watched his car disappear down the street before walking inside. The house was completely dark, except for the living room. Damien sat alone on the couch. He hadn't turned on the television. He wasn't scrolling through his phone. He'd been waiting. "Did you have fun?" His voice sounded cold. "I did." "What did you talk about?" "A lot of things." "Like what?" I smiled slightly. "That's between me and Jackson." His jaw tightened. "You've never kept secrets from me." I laughed quietly. "That's funny." "What? You've been keeping one for over a year." His face darkened immediately. "You still think something happened with Nikki?" "I don't think." "I know." He stood up. "Prove it." "I will." Then I walked upstairs, leaving him standing alone. Over the next week, Jackson and I had dinner again, then coffee, then another dinner. Nothing inappropriate happened. We were simply spending time together, but Damien didn't know that. Every time my phone buzzed, he looked up. Every time I smiled, he wanted to know why. Every time I left the house, he demanded to know where I was going. The irony wasn't lost on me. The man who expected me to accept my sister pretending to be his wife couldn't handle me having coffee with his own brother. One evening, I came home later than usual. As soon as I walked inside, I stopped. Nikki was sitting on my couch. Her shoes were off. She was curled up beside Damien with a blanket over both of them. His arm rested comfortably around her shoulders. They looked domestic, like a married couple, inside my house. My house, the one I paid for, the one they treated like it belonged to them. Neither of them even looked embarrassed. "Oh," Damien smiled. "You're home." I slowly put my purse down. "What is she doing here?" Nikki answered first. Damien was lonely. I came to keep him company. I looked directly at her. "Get out." She blinked. "What?" "You heard me. Get out." She laughed. "You can't kick me out. This is Damien's house too." I smiled. "No, it isn't. His name isn't on the mortgage. It isn't on the deed. It isn't on a single utility bill. The only reason he lives here is because I allowed it." The room became completely silent. Damien finally stood up. "Don't talk to her like that." I looked at him. "You're protecting her." "I'm protecting someone who doesn't deserve to be attacked." I laughed. "The woman sleeping with my husband?" "No one's sleeping with anyone." He said it so quickly. It almost sounded rehearsed. I stepped closer. "Then explain why she's here. We're friends." "Friends?" I nodded slowly. "Interesting. So when I have coffee with Jackson, I'm betraying you. But when you cuddle with my sister on my couch, that's friendship." Neither of them answered, because they couldn't. I looked at Nikki. "Tell me something." "What? Do you honestly believe he's going to leave me for you?" She hesitated. "He loves me." There it was. Finally, out loud, the confession. The room became completely silent. I slowly turned toward Damien. "Is that true?" He looked at Nikki, then at me, then at the floor. "Damien," I waited. Tell her. Nikki's voice trembled. You told me you loved me. Another long silence. Finally, he whispered, I don't know what to say. Nikki stared at him in disbelief. No. Tell her. You told me we'd be together. You promised. He stepped backward. This isn't the time. She grabbed his arm. When? When is the right time? You said after the reunion. Everything would change. He pulled his arm away. I need some air. Then, he walked out the back door, leaving both of us standing there. Nikki watched him disappear into the backyard. Tears slowly filled her eyes. He loves me. She sounded like she was trying to convince herself. I shook my head. No. He loves attention. He loves being admired. He loves whoever makes his life easier. But love? I looked toward the back door. I don't think he even knows what that means. For the first time, I actually felt sorry for her. She'd destroyed our relationship, thrown away her own future. And for what? A man who couldn't even admit he loved her when it mattered most. She'd sacrificed everything to become someone else's secret. That night, after Nikki finally left, I went upstairs and texted Jackson. She's gone. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed. Are you okay? I smiled. Better than I was yesterday. Something changed tonight. What happened? I stared at the screen before replying. She finally realized she was never the first choice. Jackson replied almost immediately. And what about you? I looked around the guest bedroom. At the packed boxes I'd quietly started preparing. At the divorce attorney's business cards sitting on the nightstand. Then I typed the words I'd been afraid to admit for years. I'm finally choosing myself. Jackson's response came only seconds later. I'm proud of you. For the first time in a very long time, I believed someone actually meant those words. 2 days later, the high school reunion was finally here. Damien thought everything was ready. Nikki had memorized every story. They had matching outfits. They had rehearsed every smile, every answer, every lie. They thought they were walking into the perfect evening. What neither of them knew was that I already had a plan of my own. And by the end of that night, every lie they'd spent 10 years protecting was about to collapse in front of everyone they knew. I stood up, looked my husband in the eyes, and quietly said, "It's over." Then I pulled out my phone and played every recording I had. The room went completely silent. Everyone finally heard the truth. How he had pressured my sister to pretend to be his wife just to protect his image and hide his lies. His family tried to defend him at first, but the evidence spoke for itself. My sister apologized through tears, admitting she never should have gone along with it. I forgave her, but I couldn't forgive him. A few weeks later, I filed for divorce and walked away with my dignity. The man who spent so much energy creating fake stories ended up losing everything because of one simple truth. Lies always fall apart, and the truth always catches up in the end.